I'm just, and so y'all, she's here to ask any questions. I've created this as a safe space for us to kind of have these conversations. And some of you might are new to the group, and some of you may know me, may not know me. I'm Felicia Reed. I'm a portrait photographer, and I do empowerment photo shoots to help women and, you know, feel good in their bodies, love their bodies. And I went through breast cancer and was put into menopause very early last year. And this whole, I met Nicole at an event. We had like, what was called
Effortless Intimacy.
Effortless Intimacy. She had it at my studio last month. And just hearing her talk, and also being in a group of women, I think there was like, I don't know, 8 other women there, kind of having this conversation. A lot of them were postpartum, but their symptoms and their things they were dealing with was exactly what I was dealing with. And I was like, where have you been, Nicole? I think that everybody needs you. And so just having these conversations around whatever we need to have it around, we need to talk about it. So get started. Let's get started. Where do you want to start? Well, before you get started, one of the things her topic is, you know, what is sexy? And sexy is different for everybody. And whenever it comes to portraiture, I always ask that to someone. They're like, I want to do a boudoir, sexy photo shoot, you know? And I'll say, well, what's sexy to you? That looks different to everybody. So how about you? What is sexy in your realm? And when you're talking to your clients, how do you want to start that conversation?
Yeah, it's definitely different for everyone. I'm really curious to know what some of the things are that your clients say in your sessions, because that's just such interesting data. Do you mind sharing a little bit of it?
Well, usually sexy is different for everybody. Sometimes it's the way that they smile. It doesn't always have to be like, it's just different to them. It's maybe they want to portray a certain kind of energy, you know, I'm always moving, or energy, or sexy could be simple as my boobs. I think my thighs are sexy. I think my butt is sexy, you know. I just think the energy that I carry, and I've been through a lot, or I was in a relationship where I couldn't even express sexy, you know, they've been suppressing it in relationships, or they just haven't been in the right, I guess, in the right environment to really explore, or whatever that looks like. And then in photos, it's going to look a lot different than how they would work that out through, you know, real life. But in photos, it's just me usually capturing that essence and that nature of who they are, you know, who they really are, because I do create a safe environment, a safe container for them to kind of express that. And so the photography is just a vessel for them to kind of express, and it's kind of a mirror to reflect back at them exactly how they're feeling at that moment. Or sometimes it's not even their face, you know, it's just them doing something, or them touching. There's a lot of touch in my photography. And I know you had talked about touch, and I had no idea what that really was, but how you had kind of explained it, it's kind of cool. But there's a lot of touching, or, you know, movement, and asking them, coaching them, like, how does that feel? What is that? Do you like, you know, I don't know. That's kind of how it kind of goes.
Yeah. Okay, it's so cool. So yeah, there's a lot of touch involved, and you're getting them into a state almost of like feeling sexy. It's not, it sounds like it comes a lot from how they're feeling rather than like exactly how they're looking, you know?
Yeah.
And because if you're able to embody your body fully, and you're like taking up all of the bounds, like to your edges, like maybe it even goes past your body, you can feel that, and that feels sexy, you know?
Yeah.
And so in my practice, people are often coming to me kind of looking for tips and tricks and things like that to fix their sexuality.
Yeah.
And what we get to like time and time again is that like creating an environment of safety and comfort, and a place where your nervous system can relax and your body can relax. That's the kind of environment where you're able to access play, and you're able to access spontaneity, and you're able to access that like really electric, like juicy stuff that you probably catch on film all the time.
Oh yeah. Yeah. And so some of the ladies, I mean, whenever it comes to sexy, like even when you're dealing with your clients, what does that look like? Or how do you get that out of your clients? Like, what are some things that you're doing to help? Like you said, what does that look like for me? What does that look like for you when you're working with a client?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So probably not how you would expect. And so all of the sessions that I do are totally non-goal oriented, which is really difficult for people to understand because our definition of sexuality is completely goal oriented. We only know what sex means when it means penetration and orgasm. That's usually the limit of what our definition is. And so if you are in your body and you're in your sexuality in a way that's totally non-goal oriented, what does that even look like? How can you be touching your own body? How can you have curiosity about touching another person's body just for that moment that you're in right now? So what's the actual sensations that you're feeling right now? And so a lot of the practices that we're doing are bringing people back to the awareness of what they're feeling now. And so, and we don't have like a lot of experience doing that. We don't have a lot of opportunity to do that. We're taught in so many ways to get out of our bodies. We're taught that our bodies are wrong. They're not a safe place to be. They don't look right. And so we end up numbing out so that we can kind of forget that we're incarnate beings.
Yeah.
And so there are these moments in life where as women, we come to a place where we have to admit to ourselves that we're physical beings. And one of those times is during birth and the postpartum.
Yeah.
It's one of those times, just like we were talking about in the class, of like, I don't have capacity to please anymore. I don't have capacity to do things that my body doesn't want to do because I'm too effing tired, I have too many other things to do, and maybe I'm in pain, like maybe my pelvis is in pain at this point. Another one of those times is during menopause.
Yeah.
It's one of those times where you're like, okay, everything is kind of like everything's stripped down, to the truth.
Doesn't exist.
It's like
doesn't exist anymore.
You keep saying this to me. I'm like, it can.
I want to know how. We're going to talk about how to give us some tips later, but yeah. But it feels that way. It feels that way.
I know.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's
so,
one of those.
Go ahead. Sorry. I get excited.
I was just going to say, it's one of those moments in life where you're really facing yourself, like really up close, like right up to yourself in the mirror of how have I been interacting with my body up until this point, and how flexible can I be with how I access my pleasure? Can I do it with my body in many forms? Can I do it in many different ways, in many different situations? So yeah, what were you going to say?
For those that are, I know someone earlier when we were on live for a second, they ask about, they have a low libido, which that is, can you tell me libido? I don't even use that word often. What is libido for those that may not know?
Yeah, it's like how excited you may be for sex and how often you think about it, and yeah, how much you're initiating sex. I work with a lot of couples that have desire discrepancy, and women that have low libido. I have kind of an unpopular opinion about libido as a concept.
Hey, talk to me. This is the place to talk about it.
Yeah. So I view pleasure and desire for pleasure as kind of your desire for life. The way I define sex and sexuality and pleasure is not directly related to the genitals or other quote erogenous zones. The way I understand sexuality is that it is your the energy that's moving you towards the things that you want.
Mhm.
And that's what it is at its most like basic unit, I guess.
Mhm.
And so I think that we get into this trap of low libido because we have a very limited definition of what sex is. And so we end up like not wanting penetration, yeah, or like not wanting genital touch.
Mhm.
Like maybe your body has good reasons for that. Like maybe you're in the postpartum period, or maybe your body, your pelvis is going through changes because you're going through menopause.
Mhm.
All that means is that there's a desire for something else right now, and you start there, because in sexuality that's like fully functioning and totally burgeoning, it's always led by your curiosity. And so we don't try to fix like, I don't want immediate genital touch, there's something wrong with me. It's like, okay, what do you want right now? And where's your curiosity leading you in your body? And we all always have desire. There's always that. There's always something that's pulling us towards something. And pleasure is the sensations that we receive when we allow our body to move towards whatever that thing is.
How do you go about allowing? Because sometimes we have this innate, like you said, this pull, but we don't know what that's about. Or maybe we don't know if that's okay. You know what I mean? Like we're like, is this what I want? But my partner doesn't understand. Like, how do you start the process of allowing and just exploring and being curious?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So a big thing is de-shaming desire and de-shaming pleasure, and depoliticizing desire as well. There's no desire or thing that your body is moving towards that's bad. And that practices and achieving that can look, there are a lot of different ways to do it. One of the biggest functions of having a sexological body worker that you're working with is that you're working with someone that is totally accepting of every single part of you, of all of your desires, and they're there to witness you exactly as you are and what you want. And having someone that is able to receive your wants and just listen and witness it can sometimes change the whole game for people. And so that's one small step, is just someone literally voicing what they want,
Yeah.
saying out loud the desires that are not getting fulfilled, and having them be received by a compassionate and non-judgmental ear.
Yeah. And so what else is sexy? I mean, in your line of work, like you said, we're talking about what is sexy, are
Mhm.
there other things?
Yeah. So I I've thought about this word like a lot, because it's, why in the world is the word sexy and like beautiful and all of these words that we use when we're talking about body image, why don't they mean you enjoying yourself during sex, for example,
Yeah.
or you like moving through the world like confidently in the way that you want? And so like a lot of women come to work with me, and they're surprised to learn that when they learn how to put boundaries in place, they learn how to say their no, and their body understands how to do it even under pressure. That's when they start to feel sexy again. They're like, oh, all of a sudden I have this space, and for some reason, not having engagement in some way, now I feel really, really sexy. I feel like my body is mine. And that's a big thing for women, is feeling that your body belongs to you
Yeah.
is one way to get like real juicy.
Yeah. And I believe that too, with me going through the change and just overall changing in me on my self-love journey is trying to fall in love with the way that I look now. I mean, it's not connected, but to me, there was something sexy about how I loved the way that my body was at one point. Now I'm trying to re-embrace that. because I have changed a lot, but some of the things is doing the things that make me feel sexy and feel confident. And it could be sometimes as a life coach, I kind of talk about anchors, like anchoring different emotions and different feelings. And you can anchor it whether on your body, it could be anchored with the smell, it could be anchored with the sound, touch, anything. And so for me to get anchored into what is sexy and that feeling of sexy, I have to go back to a time when I felt the most sexy. I feel what I felt, see what I saw, hear what I heard, and it could be a certain kind of perfume. It could have been some sexy panties or something that I wore. Like using those anchors from the past, to kind of help me get back to that. Or maybe it was a song, maybe it was something that I heard and the way that I move my body. So that's some ways that I get back to sexy, because I feel that whenever I feel sexy and feel confident, and confidence is very sexy to me, that I'm able to, I don't know, I'm more interested, or my desire, it sparks my desire and my libido. How about that? So my confidence, my body confidence, my loving myself, me going back to those things that feel good and smell good, and things that I hear in music that feels good for me to move my body, helps me feel sexy. And it kind of sparks that desire a little bit more. Have you heard that before?
Absolutely. And my question for you is, what does that feel like in your body when you're in that state? What's like one
It's just like,
sensation that you could point to?
it starts here from the chest and is just tingling. Like I am just euphoric, like high. It's just kind of like you're just so happy. I'm just so happy. I'm just happy and full of joy when I feel good about myself. And that energy, and that puts out a vibration and frequency that attracts just more great things to me.
And what is your body doing that's telling you that you're happy?
Oh, I don't know. I think it's just I don't know. I stand up taller. I just feel, it's a feeling that comes from inside. It's just this, I don't know how to explain it. You could just tell
And
it,
where,
and you just kind of know. My life coach, when she talks to me on Zoom like this, she goes, oh, because I'll be like this, and then I'll say something that gets me excited, and I sit up a little taller and I talk, and she's just like, oh, you just light up, Felicia. You just light up, when this happens, or when you do X, Y, and Z.
yeah. And something that I work with my clients is, I don't call them anchors, but they could be called anchors, is these states that we enjoy being in and that we want more of. When we really get curious about how they actually feel in our bodies, we're able to access them again and again and again. And it's an interesting exercise to go through. I feel happy right now, and really understanding what that feels like in your body, because happy is a concept.
Yeah.
And so if we root it in a sensation, like right now I feel content and like motionful. Yeah. And for me, that feels like I can feel the front side of my body and the back side of my body equally. It feels like there is like the air around me is the right density. It's not like too loose where I just fall, or too dense where I can't move. And there's like this like image of like a highway that goes through my chest, and that's like, yeah, content and motionful for me right now. So like you say, happy, and it comes from a place inside. Like where inside is that?
This is in my chest. So, I mean, I always starts here in my chest, and sometimes it may feel like in my stomach, like, but I know I can. I mean, I'm more aware of my body probably than some, and you are definitely more aware of your body than some. But how does someone even start to even like bring that awareness to their body? I mean, to what's happening with their body. Because today we did talk about touch and pleasure and touch and stuff. And we talked about it on Instagram Live, but maybe some of this audience didn't hear you about pleasure and touch. Like, how does someone become more aware like that?
Yeah, that practice that we were talking about, waking up the hands, which is part of Betty Martin's wheel of consent framework. Waking up the hands is you are taking an object, and it can be any object. It can be a pen, like you got earlier today, and you're just becoming really curious about the sensations in your hand as you're touching the pen. And it's like you're touching it for the first time, and it doesn't matter what the function of that object is. It's like you're a newborn baby, and you're just touching this thing for the first time and discovering the world again. And that can be a way to slowly start opening up this pathway to direct sensation again. And what helps the most out of anything for people that are getting more in tune with their bodies is just slowing down.
Yeah.
And that's what we do in session a lot. We really slow things down. So if I'm working with a couple, for example, and they're practicing making requests to each other, it's not like one of them asks and then we do that thing. It's like, first notice one thing that's going on in your body, then notice if there is a desire that's bubbling up. Say it if you feel like that's doable right now, and then notice what it's like to have said it. Notice what it's like for the other person to receive a desire so clearly from their partner. And then after all those things, maybe they exchange touch.
Yeah. So what
But
is
honestly,
the desire that would usually bubble up? What's an example?
like, can you put anything, like, can you put your hands over my eyes and just press for 30 seconds?
People, I mean, that's the thing, like, and that's for,
You'd be surprised. People, when it's so like surprising to people, but even though there's any kind of touch like available on the table, you can ask your partner for anything. We rarely just want to go for the super sexual acts right off the bat, even men, even males, and by the way, like that is my that's my theory about erectile dysfunction, is because even men are not allowing their sexualities to look more like this and kind of confusing and non-linear. And that's why we keep thinking their bodies are dysfunctional, is because we're not allowing for the kind of confusing nature that sexuality actually is.
or is it really confusing? Maybe just being that, it just seems confusing to who?
I think it can be confusing, or you could think of it as an infinite opportunity to explore your life and your sensation in your body. And it's like you really can experience infinite sensations in your body, and we are limiting ourselves to this tiny definition of sex, which involves one part of the body doing one particular motion. It's horrible.
Today, whenever you talked about touch, I mean, April says, yeah, that felt good when you're doing the touch. But when you said that, I was driving today and I was like, okay, let me open my awareness to the sensations of things that I'm touching. And I'm just driving, and I was gripping the steering wheel, and I said, you're touching the steering wheel. Like, it's just, remember, we go into this trance and we just do things and we don't pay attention, and we're not hyper aware of what we're doing or the environment or the touch or whatever. And I literally was just driving and focusing on the steering wheel and like moving my hands, and it felt very soothing. I don't know. You just have to try, y'all. I'm not going crazy. And just like you said, even with a pen or even with your hands, and we always touch our hands, and maybe that's just like a nervous thing that we do, but we're just touching. We're not really paying attention to what we're doing.
Yeah. And the other thing, another opportunity to do this is when you're touching your body for another reason, like maybe you're putting lotion on.
Yeah.
Like, can you be aware of what it's like to receive that touch from yourself, and aware of the hand that's doing the touching? Or makeup, like when we're putting our makeup on, can we like feel our body and actually look into our own eyes? Oh, how nourishing is it to look into your own eyes? you know, anything, putting socks on, like, can you touch your leg? Like actually touch your leg.
That really made me feel good. I know y'all, this is gonna sound weird, but I've had babies and you know how you have that let down feeling? Well, you don't know, but there's a let down, like a tingly feeling. Mind you, I have no ovaries, no uterus, no nothing. There's probably very little hormones going through my body. But just today, just practicing touch, I felt that tingly feeling through my body that felt like a let down feeling. And it was awakening. It was awakening me to more awareness. And I feel that when you're more awareness, that brings more confidence to me. And that makes me feel sexy.
Mm-hmm.
As versus before, sexy what? Where?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like it is more than just this linear thing in this little box that we put pleasure into.
Yeah. And the origins of where that comes from is just kind of horrible. I mean, did you know that they actually took the clitoris out of anatomy textbooks
No.
at some point because women's pleasure became a dirty thing?
No, I didn't know that. I know
Yeah.
I did study anatomy because I was in school, but I didn't pay much attention to that part. And oh, and ultrasound, I think we probably had to talk about it because we were talking about the female parts. But I don't know, that was
Mhm.
long ago. I don't know what they've done to the books these days.
Well, even nowadays, the way that the clitoris is innervated is actually wrong in a lot of textbooks. And so when they're doing things like surgery in that area of the body, like labiaplasty or anything else,
Mhm.
sometimes they accidentally cut that nerve because they haven't learned the correct placement of it. Yeah. So it's like, you know, there's been so many different ways where as women we've been taught to deprioritize our pleasure and even like think of it as like a bad thing. And I can't remember why I got on that tangent, but let me think.
Little facts that we don't even know. This is a safe space for us to have these conversations because I don't know much about much, and that's just me. I don't know what everybody else knows, and there's no judgment zone here. But I remember taking your class and realizing that you said that it takes a woman 45 minutes to reach their peak. Is that what you said?
On average, it takes women about 45 minutes for their arousal tissue, which we have just as much as males do, to become fully erect. And we get erections just like men. It's just that the tissue is in different spots.
Yeah, I didn't even know. We don't talk about these
Yeah.
things. We don't talk about
Mhm.
these things. And then it just makes sense because if you're being intimate and everything, and men are like, "Pew," and you're like, well, hold on just a minute. Like, I need mentally, I don't know. Everybody is a little different, but yeah, that was an interesting fact that I learned from your intimacy class. So that was kind of cool. What else was I was going to ask you something else. What else did you want to ask? Oh, yes. April had asked earlier, like, how does one become a sexological body worker?
So there are a number of schools around the world. I got certified in the UK with the C School of Embodiment. And it's a program where you are delving into your embodied beliefs about your own sexuality, and you're doing a lot of practices on yourself. So it's very confronting.
On yourself? Like, what kind of practices are you doing on yourself?
All kinds. So, there's the in-person part of the course was totally naked, and we were like just, like learning on each other's bodies. And so that was like a huge de-shaming exercise. But along the entire course, which was mostly online, there were tons of naked practices and self-pleasure practices, and you really learn that pleasure is not dirty. It is beautiful, and it's something that needs to be celebrated. And there are actually ceremonies that I want to hold here in Austin, but don't have time for it yet. But there are ceremonies where you are just celebrating pleasure.
Sure that others will probably be interested in all of this. Like, it's absolutely incredible. And so what are some, can we just get a takeaway? Because Like, what is something that we can do, a practice that we can start moving towards de-shaming? Is that what you want to say? De-shaming ourselves around
Yeah.
around this topic or our bodies?
Yeah.
What is
So
something we could do?
I recorded a little practice today, which is on my blog post, which I'm sure we'll leave the link to
Yes,
somewhere.
I'll put it.
And it's this practice of waking up the body to pleasure and doing that daily, because our bodies have to learn that pleasure is safe and it's okay to feel. And doing a little practice every single day where you're just putting aside just a little bit of time to be in your pleasure teaches your body that it's safe and that it's equally as safe to open up to pleasure just a little bit than to close down. Because the reason why our bodies are closed to pleasure, there's a lot of good reasons for that. We've learned that it's how to fit in, and we've learned that it's the kind of woman we're supposed to be, and that's how we find safety. It's how we get like listened to, in most situations, by not inhabiting our pleasure and by being I won't go into describing what this is, but I think everyone knows what I mean. And so having a little self-pleasure practice, which is really gentle, just with the hands, every day can make a huge difference. And getting back to the sexological bodywork course, like we did a self-pleasure practice for a minimum of 45 minutes for at least 30 days. And most people in the course that did it continued on because they realized how major it was to be devoting that time to their entire bodies and to their pleasure, and how it actually just totally changes the way that you understand your life. There's this quote by Audre Lorde that speaks to the life changes that you make once you experience your total and complete joy, that everything in your life at that point has to be scrutinized with the yardstick of how much pleasure you know yourself to be capable of. And then things start to really change at that point because you know how much joy you're able to feel. And so tiny self-pleasure practice is something I'd recommend.
Judy says, does that have to do with insecurities? I don't know. That's what she said.
What have to do with insecurities?
Maybe the shaming or something. I don't know. Judy, you'll have to elaborate on it. But so if that particular, practice of, by yourself, what is something that one can do? We step out into the world that we can, how do you carry pleasure daily out with you daily? What does that look like? If someone is fully into, like you learned in your class and your course, and you're stepping out into the world, no shame, what does that look like? Because maybe we see it all the time, but we don't know why that person is so confident. Why is it the pleasure that they're in tune to, or what does that look like when there is like no more shame? They don't feel the shame around it, and they are in tune to their bodies and pleasure. What does a person look like that accepted that?
Pleasure is a byproduct of having body literacy skills, and you can parse body literacy skills out into a bunch of different pillars. One would be noticing sensation. Another would be having nervous system awareness. So being able to either voice when you're not feeling safe, or to change your environment so that you are feeling safe. Another skill would be like boundary setting. And then, there are all these like pillars of body literacy. And once you're able to fully, you feel totally fluent in all of these pillars of inhabiting your body, that's when pleasure happens. But pleasure is not a goal, just like fun can't be a goal. Like you can't go to an event and say, I am going to have fun. Fun happens when you feel safe, when you're comfortable with the people that you're with, when you're doing something that lights you up. It's a byproduct. Same
Right.
with pleasure, even not just walking through the world, but like even in sex.
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's like that, it's like a beautiful gift that we totally have easy access to. There's just a few like skills that we would know if we didn't lived in society like a society like we do now. It would become as naturally as breathing to us otherwise. But there are just some few like essential things we need to learn to
The
get there.
trust in place. Judy said, if they're not shamed, then I would think that you don't have insecurities and you love the skin that you're
Yeah,
in. Now,
that
just
totally makes sense, Judy. Yeah, I think that again, like body image, the way you feel about your image is also a byproduct. Just like we talked about on the Instagram live, like affirmations, and you'll read more of my blog post why this doesn't work, but like affirmations are the very end of the pipeline. Changing your beliefs about your body doesn't start with your beliefs. It starts with how you're moving through the world. And that's the way you make change. And you can only do that with using somatics and using your body practices and actually touching yourself, even in tiny ways.
I love it. So I appreciate you spending, I know you've had a long day and I thank you for spending time with us. And this is going to be a regular thing that we're going to have for the next, 3 to 6 months. So what's a plan over that? We're going to do the last Thursday of the month around 6. So we could do it 6 o'clock. I mean, 6 or 6:30. It depends on your schedule. We'll post it. So what's the plan? What are we going to achieve? Achieve by the end of
Yeah, we're bringing this conversation that there aren't many spaces, or I want to say there aren't any spaces to have, but I don't want to use an absolute like that, but there aren't many places to talk about openly our body image, our sexuality, to ask questions that you're not allowed to ask, that, just think about how like our sex ed was organized when we were kids, like God. So it's all of that gap in knowledge that we should have had from when we were really, really young to now, of how to feel good in our bodies, and how to feel pleasure and how to feel fucking amazing when you look at yourself in the mirror. And that's the offering I'm working on. It's called Take Back the Mirror, because we're gonna fucking take it, guys.
that. We want to take it back. And she's going to be
Take
offering
it back.
that in September. Is that the one that's in September?
The doors will open in September. Yeah,
Gonna open
it'll
in
start in
September.
October.
Yeah, but she's also going to be having a class or two at the studio in June. And so I just wanted to introduce her to you guys. So when you see me post about Nicole, she's a sexological body worker. She's a sexy lady. And she does a lot of other things. And honestly, I don't know. I mean, I don't know all the topics you're going to talk about, but maybe if you want some input from the audience, just post some more things. I know a couple of, y'all had wrote about menopause and stuff, but if there's some other things you want to talk about, this is what the space is about. Any feedback or any input on that?
Yeah, please ask questions. I want to know what y'all want to know, and we can, I would love for it to be as interactive as possible. So yeah, anyone that has questions, just leave it in. Even if it feels like a stupid question, it's not a stupid question. We were never taught any of this, and curiosity is something to be super, super, super celebrated. So if you have a curiosity, please, just post it and we'll talk about it next time.
And before we sign off, because I learned one incredible fact from you the last time, is there something that you can share with us that is a fun fact that maybe most of us may not know? Or I don't know a lot of stuff. I'm sorry, I'm vanilla. Okay, educate me.
It's funny, my brain immediately goes to the most taboo topic, which I'm not going to talk about, but there's a lot to know about the anus, but we will not talk about that today.
Why can't you talk about it? You can talk about anything.
It's totally unrelated.
Okay,
No,
okay, all
we'll
right.
talk about it at a different time. I guess the little tidbit I'll leave people with is that female bodies our arousal starts from the outside in.
What is that?
And so if you want to get that full like engorgement in your arousal tissues, it's usually a real good idea not to start with your genitals. Maybe it starts with the environment of the room. Maybe it starts with massaging the rest of your body, even if you're self-pleasuring. Yeah, like maybe it starts touching the rest of your body, maybe, and even when you get to the genitals and the vagina, you don't go straight for the clitoris.
Okay.
Start with the outer labia. They really like to be touched because they've been pushed up against our body all day with tight underwear. They like to be stretched out. Like, let your body take up space. And
I think my labia's got a lot of space it can take.
great. More arousal tissue.
Hey, this is what this is about. We can have fun and talk about this stuff. Oh my gosh. Oh, that's a good tip. That's a really good tip. Well, how can they find you? And if they want to learn more, maybe, you know, outside of this, our little talks.
Yeah, there's lots of ways to get involved. My Instagram is bodycompass.me. And I have a free 30-minute consultation if anyone is interested in one-on-one work. And then there's a lot of other offerings coming up. So I'm working on an online course, but it's not out yet, but it will be really, really, really soon. So, and we're going to do in-person events in Austin as well. So, you know, we'll make sure those are really visible here too.
And she's also a doula, so she works with postpartum. So it's not, you know, I am menopausal, that, you know, she can work with you. If you're menopausal, she can work with postmenopausal as well as postpartum. So,
and I'm a birth doula. Yeah. So I work with moms through their pregnancy.
She works with moms. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And so I put her Instagram here. I put your blog post here. The conversation that I hope it was here, maybe it was on the other one, but I put it somewhere here. And 14 comments, there it goes. It's hard to navigate these things, but I appreciate y'all taking time out of your evening. I appreciate you, Nicole, like from the bottom of my heart. Today's been incredible. I'm going to learn a lot. I know a lot of people are going to learn a lot, and we'll continue this conversation. And if y'all want to ask any questions, feel free to post here and on this thread. And Nicole's in the group. She can answer questions, or if she doesn't know, then she can send you a message and you can talk a little bit more. Thank you, Sam. Thank you, Tiffany. Thank you, Danielle and Judy and April. I hope y'all found this valuable, and I hope that you ask her some more questions or just give us some topics on what you want Nicole to kind of talk about. And I mean, don't be shamed. Don't be shamed. I mean, if you got to talk about the anus, we can talk about the anus. I'm just saying. I don't know. I don't know. This is the area we're going to talk about the taboo stuff. I don't know.
Yeah, I do have the little troublemaker in me that likes to like just put the hardest things right up at the front.
I like that.
So, and if y'all want to send a private message, you're super welcome to do that as well.
Yeah.
It doesn't need to be public.
Don't
and
want it public. Yeah.
Thank you for welcoming me into this community, all of you and Felicia. This is super great. I'm really, really grateful.
I'm very thankful. I'm very thankful. Okay, we'll keep y'all posted on the events and stuff that's happening, but thank you again. We'll see you the end of next month. I think it's May 25th. I'll put it in here. Yeah, so we'll see y'all then. And until then, thank you very much. Bye.